This is another episode of Live Coding with Matt Groves. I'm your host, Matt Groves, and today we're going to be, let me minimize some stuff here, we're going to be talking some more about JavaScript, but this time we're going to actually fire up some Node to do some unit testing. I was struggling last time with some JavaScript code that I was writing, mainly because it wasn't tested at all, and I was really having a hard time with it. Because this is going to be JavaScript that's not going to run in a browser, and it's not going to run in Node. It's actually going to run in the Couchbase eventing system, which is relatively new, and I just need some way to write more complex JavaScript. So I thought I'd fire up a Node application, and that has already paid off. So we're going to get into that today. So the lesson here, short lesson. If you don't have time to watch this whole video, unit tests. Write your unit tests. Okay, so we're going to get to that today. All right, so just a few things before we get started. I just want to give another shout out to my team here, my team of live coders that I'm on. It's not my team, except in the sense that I am also on the team. But Live Coders is a Twitch team, and you can see here we've got InstaFluff doing some streaming, doing some game development. Lots of different types of developers on here. But right here I'm on the list, Matthew D. Groves. But you can see there's a bunch of other people you should check out. Dev Chatter, of course, Ed Charbonneau, just a few, Michael Jolly, and somewhere on here, C# Fritz, I think is the original creator of this team, and so on. So these are all people you should check out. They're all doing some sort of interesting live coding or technology building, something like that. And definitely check out this team. So the URL's up here, twitch.tv/team/livecoders. Okay, and other thing I wanted to plug again is the Awesome Developers streaming list, which is a similar sort of thing, but it's not just a Twitch team. This is a bunch of developers who are doing some live coding, live streaming about technology, and this is just a GitHub repo. Anyone can submit themselves to this list, and you can go to this page here on GitHub, and you can find someone who's live streaming something that you're interested in when it comes to coding. So you can see all these different names here, but there's interesting thing about this is you can search by all these different streaming texts or tags, right? So if you're interested in Node, like we're going to talk about Node today, looks like Adam13531 is also streaming about Node, so you can go and find out more about that. IoT or clean architecture, JavaScript, refactoring, all kinds of stuff on here. And I like to do a little search to see who is interested in data and databases. So there's myself, Matt Groves, Shirley Wu, she's been on this list for a while, Ted Young doing Spring Data, and Go Maestro Go, we brought him up last time doing some relational database design. Jack Mott doing some data structures, not exactly databases, but kind of interesting. Might want to check out Jack Mott here. Go ahead and give him a follow. Here's myself and Shirley Wu, already got her, Ted Young. Okay, so I thought I'd bring up Jack Mott here and just give him a little bit of follow. Currently not online, but interesting stuff he's talking about. Looks like he might be into Go. So that'll be interesting for me to check out. All right, so definitely check out the Awesome Developers streaming list. There's the URL right there. It's just a GitHub repository. Stop by and check it out. One more thing I want to bring up is this bit.ly address right here. This goes to my YouTube videos list. So if you bring this up, you can see all the previous episodes of this show on Twitch. I export them to YouTube, and I also sometimes I'll take little clips of the show because it's usually an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'll take interesting little short clips and break those out into their own little highlight videos. Those are also on Twitch, but those also get exported here to YouTube. So you can see some of these recent episodes. Not everything I live stream is about what we're going to talk about today, which is some serious database and JavaScript coding. Sometimes it's fun stuff like VR, or in this case, I was soldering together electronics kit, and I'm doing some podcast editing down here and stuff like that. So it's a lot of different stuff. My main streams during the day, however, are about coding in C#, .NET, using Couchbase as a database, doing some JavaScript, things like that. So anyway, if you're interested in going back and look at those episodes, here's the easy link for you to remember here to go to YouTube. bit.ly/GrovesTube. All right. Okay, let's get on with it. So, last time I was streaming, I was struggling with some duplicate cross-reference information that was being created by my JavaScript program. So, just a little bit of recap here. I'm building a tutorial to get people started building a basic Customer 360 data ingestion system. And the point of this is at your enterprise, you have lots of different databases for lots of different systems, and they all contain some piece of the whole pie that is a person or is a customer. And with the Customer 360, the intent is to bring all that data together into one place so we can view everything about a customer, all 360 degrees of a person, in order to better serve them, in order to run some reports around all of our customers and things of that nature. And we're not going to get to that part yet. We're just focusing on the ingestion part of it right now. And the ingestion part is, in the tutorial, I'm going over 3 different methods to ingest data and then integrate them together in this layer here. So in previous streams up until now, we've got the Kafka stream running, and that's doing a real-time live sort of data pipeline from this home delivery MySQL database over to Couchbase in a staging area in Couchbase. We've got this CSV, which runs once a day, that exports a CSV from this Postgres database and then imports the CSV into Couchbase, again into that staging area. And then we created a REST API, HTTP API, that we can send an email address to and ask for a person's online store information, their profile, their order history, etc. And we can pull that into the Customer 360 system. So all those 3 parts are working, and what I worked on last time was the actual integration piece of it. And for the integration piece, I'm using, and it's kind of hard to see in this graphic here, but there's a little red box called eventing. And one of the things that eventing gives us is the ability to write functions. And what a function will do is, as data comes into our staging area, the function will see that some new data has arrived, and I can then execute some JavaScript, whatever I choose in JavaScript, to respond to that. And so what I'm doing, I'll just bring up Couchbase here. If I can find the right, there we go. So the data from those other systems is coming into this staging and what's called a bucket in Couchbase. Let me see if I can get Zoom it running here. Sorry to have it running. There we go. So the data initially comes into this staging bucket in Couchbase. It's just a bucket in Couchbase is just a collection of data. So it initially goes into that staging area, and then I have a function that monitors that staging area and says, okay, well, here's some data coming from the user home delivery system. Here's some data coming in from the loyalty program, and I'm going to take that data and combine it into a single document in the top bucket there, Customer 360. Hey, Calvin Allen, thanks for coming by. What up, G? Back at ya. Calvin has been hitting the road recently. He's been super busy, and if you follow the stream, you know that Calvin and I have a podcast called .NET Bytes, and I think the most recent episode kind of has been delayed because of Calvin being on the road there. But good to see you, Calvin. Haven't heard from you in a while. Thanks for coming by. No need to cry. It's okay. It's fine. We'll get it out there eventually. It'll be all good. So anyway, the other 2 buckets you see here, Hangfire and metadata. Metadata is just sort of infrastructure that's required for the eventing, and Hangfire is actually what I'm using to as a data store for Hangfire, which is a .NET library that will run scheduled and recurring tasks. So those are important to the system, but the main 2 I'm focusing on here is staging, which is where the data comes in, and Customer 360, which is where we want the data to end up. Okay, so what I was doing last time was I was writing some code here, and this is the onUpdate function. This is the actual function that will get executed when data comes into Couchbase. It looks just like this. In fact, if I bring up this and go over to eventing here, I've called my function ingestion Customer 360, edit the JavaScript, and you can see that you have a function called onUpdate. Right? And you can also have an onDelete, but I'm not. I don't really care about stuff getting deleted from staging right now. I just care about stuff coming in. So all I need to do is you just put some whatever JavaScript code you want to into this onUpdate, and you can see that this onUpdate is relatively small now. I'm just making calls to these other functions here, and that's where all the work is actually done. So this looks, if you were in the stream last time, this looks different than what I had before. This has been slimmed down, and one of the reasons for that is I actually decided to sit down for just like a half an hour and figure out how to start a very, very simple unit test, sort of unit testing project for Node, which is also using JavaScript. And so I want to make something clear up front that this right here, I don't think this code in Couchbase is necessarily running on Node. It's running on some JavaScript engine, but I don't know for sure if it's Node. I suspect it's not. But it doesn't matter because they're both JavaScript, so we can, I think we can usefully create some unit tests in Node here that will work for either situation, wherever we deploy this code. So what I did, and you can kind of see here, this is Visual Studio Code, by the way. I've just got one little project here with a package.json file and this test.js. And what I did is I installed a Node package called Mocha. It is, I'll bring it up here in a browser, Mocha for Node. And it is right here, mochajs.org. I don't have any strong opinions about test frameworks for Node. There's probably other ones out there. This is just sort of the first one I came across, and it's served the purpose just fine. And you can see that it's got this nice little installation guide, which all you have to do is just do an npm install. So I already have Node installed on my computer, so I just did an npm install of Mocha. And then I did, as a global install, then I did a npm install, and that is what created that project JSON file. And then I created a test.js file. And I basically, I just copied this sample right here into the test.js. And then once you have that, so there's the test.js file, and you kind of ignore this stuff for now, but you write tests with this describe, and inside describe you can have a it. These all represent individual tests. And so when I say npm test, down here in my console, npm test, it's going to look at package.json and see that I've got a script called test, and all it does is run Mocha. And so Mocha will then go through and look at this test.js file that I've created and run all those tests, execute all those tests. And you can see right now they're all passing. They're all green, which we like. Only 13 tests right now. This is a relatively complicated looking piece of code, but this is all there is to it. Right here. This is all there is to it. It's just 231 lines, period, for all the Customer 360 integration. So it seems like a lot of this all in one file, and I probably could split in multiple files, but in terms of Couchbase, I only have one place to paste the code right now, which is this one window. So I can split up into functions, but I have to paste everything into this one window. Now, I was thinking about this, and I thought that it might be a better idea to have 3 Couchbase functions, one for user delivery, one for loyalty, and one for online CRM. But then I got to thinking about, there's no real guarantee about which order these functions run in, and so that might introduce some race conditions and things like that in the code. So I'm going to leave it all in one function for now until someone comes along and tells me otherwise. But I did clean it up a little bit. So this onUpdate function is very, very slim. I try to make my functions as slim as possible and give them good names. But compared to C#, I'm not real comfortable in JavaScript. I do a lot. I used to do a ton of jQuery. I'm real comfortable in jQuery, but just plain old JavaScript and Node, I'm not super as comfortable. So if you see something that could be improved, please make a suggestion. I'm happy to hear it. And by the way, since I'm talking about suggestions and entering your messages into the chat, my philosophy with this stream is Calvin says I'm on the no more jQuery train these days. See, I've not gotten off the jQuery train just yet. I just don't work on the front end very much anymore, so I don't really have much need for it. But I wrote a lot of jQuery. I remember when I first saw jQuery, I was absolutely floored by how amazing it was compared to plain JavaScript. Or I'm not trying to slur JavaScript here, but back in the day, JavaScript was very inconsistent from browser to browser, and jQuery just brought a ton of power to the table. So anyway, I'm not quite off the jQuery train just yet. I think that it's still quite a powerful tool. So Calvin, I did an overhaul of the learning plan. The learning plan is an element of the software Calvin and I used to work on. Used all kinds of new JS stuff, and it was kind of fun again. So yeah, in the meantime, of course, JavaScript has improved immensely, and browser implementations have become more even. So it's probably less compelling to use jQuery, but I still find lots of things about it to be very useful. But again, I don't spend much time on the front end, so jQuery is just sort of a thing that I know pretty well, and I'll use from time to time. He went full hog with Edgium. No idea what Edgium is, but Calvin says he's all over the place. I don't know. Is Edgium related to the Edge browser and Chromium? Edge plus Chromium. All right. Is that just a name you're calling it, Edgium, or is that actually like an open source project that Microsoft is working on? Edgium. Microsoft, like a fork. Don't know. Anyway, we're getting way off track here. It's a nickname. Okay, makes sense. I've not heard that one yet, but I'll believe it. Okay, so the point of this is that this function will run. A document will come in, and also metadata, although we're not using the metadata here just yet. But a document comes in, and this will be the data that's coming from MySQL or Postgres, coming in from the user delivery system or loyalty member system, and then I writing some code to process that. And so the first thing I do is check to see, is this user delivery? And based on the structure of the document, I can say yes or no it is. If so, then ingest that and put it into either create a new document or add it to an existing Customer 360 document in the other bucket, Customer 360 bucket. Okay, after that, is it a loyalty member document? This probably could be an else right here, but not super important. Is it a loyalty member? Then do the same thing, ingest that into the document or create a document if it doesn't exist, Customer 360. And the last step here, if you notice, both of these return an email address, because both of these should have email in them, but they're both different spots of the document. So I'm relying on these functions to find the email address and return it to me, because I want to then turn around and use the email to poll the online CRM API to get data from that online, I call this online CRM, but it's online store API. So we're actually going to pull information instead of just waiting for it to come to us. We're actually going to go out and ask for it. And all this method does is similar to this. After it does that pull to the API, it'll add the information to the Customer 360 document or create the Customer 360 document if it doesn't already exist. So I had all this stuff done before. I've done some refactoring here to kind of clean this up. But where I was having trouble, so you can see ingest, user delivery. I've also refactored this. This code used to live up here, but as I started writing unit tests, that became untenable to write unit tests for. Let's see, got a message from my wife here. Okay, all right. Because I was basically trying to run unit tests against onUpdate. And onUpdate really is 3 different things. So I refactored that into these other functions so I could test these functions individually. In reality, if I wanted to take this further, and if we're in a system that has a dozen systems, probably want to refactor this into some sort of class or object or something. There's probably a better way to apply a strategy pattern, that sort of stuff to it. But anyway, I found this works for me, and it made unit testing easier, so I'm going to go with that. And so all this stuff is pretty much the same as before. Where I ran into the problem, so let's go to update customer doc from user delivery. That's this function right here. And so what this does is it just kind of does some left-right mapping code to get information from the, here's an example of the delivery document, right? So I'm looking at payload.after and then all this information here I want to put into my customer 360 document. So that's what this is doing. It's saying payload.after, .name, .address, .phone number, .state, city, etc. So it's either creating or updating those fields already. Automapper.js is a startup idea. Yeah, so whenever you see left-right code like this, you know, in C# anyway, you think, maybe Automapper would be good here. But we're getting a little carried away. So then the cross-ref. So this is actually what I want the document to look like, the customer 360 document. You can see some of this data is in common, like name between all those documents is going to be updated. But I have in this cross-refs array, I've got one element for each system that I'm integrating here. So here's like the online store, here's the home delivery, here's the loyalty system. And any given customer 360 document could have 1, 2, or 3 of these cross-references in them. Because not every person is signed up for the home delivery system. Not every person is signed up for the online store. Not every person is enrolled in the loyalty program, etc. So we want to get as many cross-references as we can. But what I was experiencing last time on the stream is that I would end up with multiple home deliveries cross-references. And that's not what I want. I only want one or 0 home delivery cross-references. And I was ending up with multiple copies of it. And so I did some unit testing to kind of walk through this, and I can take you through these tests here in a second. But cutting to the chase, my JavaScript looping was written incorrectly. So what I was doing was I was doing for var xref in customer doc.xrefs. Now, you know, from what I read, this is probably supposed to work. But this for in syntax is not really designed for arrays. It's designed for iterating over every key in a JSON document. So that was basically, that loop was never happening, which means I was always creating a new cross-reference. You can see this cross-reference is true here. I'll only set it to false once I find an existing cross-reference for home delivery in this case. So it was always hitting this. It was always creating a new one, and that's why I was getting these duplicates, which I wouldn't have discovered without unit testing. Well, I wouldn't have discovered as easily without unit testing. So let's go look at the unit tests. And these unit tests also help us convey a little bit, kind of a little bit of documentation about what's actually going on with this eventing functions. And these unit tests, I will commit them into the GitHub repo so you can take a look at them in more detail. But describe is basically a Mocha way of saying this is a whole suite of tests that all relate to the same thing. And then I'm just sort of creating a mock bucket here. This is, I don't know if mock's the right word or fake is the right word, but it's not. This is supposed to be a Couchbase bucket, but I'm just representing it as an object in JavaScript. And then a document. So this document, in this case, this is a sample user delivery document. I kind of showed you this already, an example of this, but you can see that mainly I'm concerned with payload, after, and all this information in here. So there's that. And then meta, which I actually probably can take that out. I'm not even using it. And then before each, this is code that runs before each one of these it statements here. So every time I run a test, I'm going to clear out this cust object. I'm going to reset it. And this is so I can avoid any sort of side effects or having to worry about my test running in a certain order, things like that. All right, so my first test is it should create, so if I'm given a user delivery doc, it should create a new customer 360 doc if one doesn't exist. And so what I do is I say, well, this is the key I expect it to find from my fake document, and then I run that ingest user delivery. Now notice this eventing dot on here, and this might go back to my poor understanding of JavaScript, but I have this test.js, and I've got my event functions in another file, which I'm bringing in. I'm including them basically by saying require eventing functions. Over in eventing functions, the way you do this in Node, from what I can tell, is you say module.export, and then you identify which functions you want to actually make available outside this function whenever you are including it or requiring it or whatever it is. And so I'm just, those three functions that I mentioned, I'm exposing those three because those are the ones I want to test. All right? So that's why this eventing dot is here. I would like to get away with not having that, but it's fine. And then I'm calling this method. I pass in my fake document that I created, my fake bucket, and this log. It's just sort of if you go back to the top here, all I'm doing is just passing in kind of a fake log or a stub that just writes to console. If I don't do that, then it's going to bomb out. It's going to have an error saying, hey, log's not defined. But in Couchbase, this stuff is all built for me. It is not something I have to create. I don't have to create the doc. It's just passed into this function. The cust bucket, I create that by specifying a binding. And the log is a function. It's kind of a global variable a little bit that exists that I can call from the event. Calvin, pretty sure there is a way to do that, but I'm not up to speed on all the modules / importing JS stuff either. Yeah, me neither. So we're making do here, and the good news is that it's working, and it's helped me find and diagnose some bugs and create some unit tests, and we can always go back and refactor it later if we need to. Okay, so I go through and I run this ingest thing, and basically all my assertion here is saying, an assert, by the way, in testing this is the actual test part where you say, okay, we have a result, does it match what we expect it to match? We're asserting that this should be the case. And if the assert is true, then the test passes, and we get the green check mark, what we have down here. So we're saying that it is not the case that the document I created in this cust bucket is undefined. And if this method does not successfully create that document, it would be undefined. So we're asserting the opposite of that, basically. And as you can see from down here, if we can open that up a little bit, if we look at our screen here, I'm pointing to my screen like you can see that. Let's try this. Right here. Should create a new customer 360 doc if one doesn't exist. It gets a green check mark. So that assertion is true. And therefore, that's Control 4. So therefore, that test is working. And the good thing about this is that every time I run the tests, it's going to run all of them. So if I make a change and it breaks something else, well then I know that I've broken something, and I can go and fix it until it turns green. So that's a really simple test, just to make sure the document actually shows up. This next one makes sure that not only does the document show up, which we already know from this test it will, but that the right stuff is being mapped into that document. So if I forgot, for instance, or I made a spelling mistake on mapping address line 1 to address 1 field, this test is going to pick that up. So this is just testing that left-right code we saw that Calvin was mentioning there. And then should create a cross-reference. So this kind of does a very similar thing to this test, but this just makes sure that a cross-reference actually exists. And I'm making the assumption here that it's going to be the only cross-reference. And I can safely make that assumption because I've isolated everything else. This is just a unit test. It's just testing this one part. So I can safely say cross-reference 0. Although if I knew JavaScript better, I could probably write this in a more robust way, but it's fine. This is just testing left-right code for cross-refs, but we're also just testing that the cross-ref actually exists. So far, so good. Now this is the big one. This is actually where I discovered what I was doing wrong with the loops today, is that if a cross-reference already exists, or a Customer 360 document already exists, we're not going to create a new one, and we're not going to create a new cross-reference. We're going to update what's already there. And so I start out by saying, here's my fake Couchbase bucket, cust. I'm going to put a document in there already. So it's not just this empty object. It now has something in it corresponding to the email address. And this is just, doesn't matter what this actual data is in here. But it matters that it already exists and there's already a cross-reference for it. And then I run it through the ingest user delivery. And then I do basically the same tests that I did before, just with a different setup. So when you're talking unit tests, there's 3 main parts. And this is usually known as the AAA. So you have a range. You set up conditions that simulate the logic you want your code to go through. So in this case, I'm setting up the simulation that there's already a document in the bucket. And then you do the act. This is the code that's under test. This is what you're actually running your test against. This is what you're testing. So you want to test the real code in there. Even though you're passing in fake information, you actually want to test the logic in there. And then the last part is assert. So we have a range, act, and assert. And assert is just that, a bunch of asserts that test things are equal to each other or not. That test your expectations. And so there's a lot of them here. Now, the way I write tests, sometimes I put a lot of assert statements in one test because I kind of feel like they're all related. Some people are very, and they have good reasons for writing tests the way they write tests. They say you should have one assert per test.
Bada bing, bada boom.
And we got a follow from, oh my goodness, Copperapaka. Copperapaka? Copperapaka. Thank you for the follow, Mr. K or Miss K, whoever you are. Thank you for following. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with us. So anyway, I'd put a bunch of asserts in here because I kind of feel like they're all related. But if you wanted to put these in their own separate tests, I totally understand that too. Totally fine. And then lastly, I added this one towards the end because I realized I need these functions to return the email address because there's different ways of finding the email address based on the incoming document. So this is a very simple test that says, hey, once you do the ingestion, the result should match the document that is actually being fed into it. All right, so there we go. And I'll just collapse this. By the way, Visual Studio Code, I didn't have to do anything. And another follow for Ben the Gamer 2014, or no, sorry, Ben the Gamer, I imagine is how you say that. Ben the Gamer 2014. Thank you for the follow. Thanks for hanging out with us. The bada bing, bada boom, by the way, is that's Calvin's voice. We used to work together, and we would pair program, and whenever we achieved something, generally speaking, whenever Calvin achieved something, because I was just sort of a freeloader, but he would say bada bing, bada boom. That was his sort of celebration phrase. So I thought I'd make that the little sound effect there. And by the way, there's an emoji for those of you who are, I guess, for those of you who are subscribers. That one right there. That's Calvin's face. That's the bada bing, bada boom emoji. Or emote, sorry, emote. By the way, a little bit of trivia about emoji. I learned recently that I sort of assumed that emoji was a Japanese word that was kind of a play on emotion. But it's not. It's actually just a couple of characters in Japanese that sound like emo plus G. It's like literally means like picture letter in Japanese. So it's just kind of a weird coincidence that it sort of corresponds to emotions. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I saw on a YouTube video, so it must be true. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Visual Studio Code. These little plus minuses here allow me to expand and contract these little blocks of code. I didn't have to do anything. There's no extension for that. This Visual Studio knows that this is JavaScript, and I can expand and collapse these curly braces, which is very nice. A very nice feature of Visual Studio Code. All right, so then loyalty member is going to be very, very similar to those tests. I'm just calling this ingest loyalty member instead, and I'm putting in a different fake document. But it's the same sort of code here, the same sort of test, just testing to see if this cross-reference happens, updating the existing cross-reference, and returning the email address. Very, very similar thing. And the last one is a little different because this code is not waiting on document to come in. It's actually going out and fetching information from a REST API. Excuse me. So I have to, in Couchbase eventing, there's actually a curl function that's built in. It's kind of a global function that eventing can use, and it's based on it probably underneath the under the cover. It's actually using the curl utility or similar to like a PHP curl or whatever, right? It makes HTTP requests and gets responses. That's what curl is. If you're not familiar with curl, that's kind of a well-known function / command line utility / sort of just thing that everyone knows, right? But anyway, so my code here, let's go back over to eventing functions. So we look at poll online CRM right here. So this is going to be a little different, right? It's going to also pull the document if it already exists, and it's going to update it from the online store. But now I need to use curl in here. So let's go down to this method here, update document from online store, and it's going to build a URL, and this is a REST API that we built in the previous stream, and it's going to make it dynamically create that URL with the email address on there, and then it's going to call this curl function. And this is, again, this is a well-known name of a function, but this is a specifically something that Couchbase exposes to every eventing function. You can call curl in it. And this actual, I just published a blog post on this on blog.couchbase.com. This curl method is actually changing its signature. So this has been in developer preview in version 6 of Couchbase. With 6.5, they're making changes to the syntax to make it more usable and better capabilities on it. So this is not how it's going to actually look in 6.5, but it's how it looks in 6.0 right now, developer preview. So that just goes out and makes a request and gets a response back. And then the rest of this code is going to be, again, very similar left-right code here and creating the cross-reference. And there we go. And I got some logging in here. That's probably left over from when I was trying to debug my issue. But that's the main difference here, is that I'm not really looking at a doc coming in. I'm looking at the results of an HTTP request. Okay. So in order to do that, to make a unit test, I don't want it to actually hit the API. So I'm calling this a mock. I don't know if it's really a mock or it's a fake or whatever you want to call it. Some sort of test double, I guess. That whenever this function is called, I'm not going to make an HTTP request. I'm going to ignore the URL, ignore the options, and just return this mock, this fake document here that I've hard-coded. So that way, this unit test is exactly that. It's a unit test. It's not testing everything. It's just testing a small piece of functionality. All right. And then before each one, I'm going to put an existing document into the system because whenever we're actually hitting the online CRM, we know that a document must already exist. So I'm going to make that assumption here. And then this is the first test. We're going to just call that poll online CRM to make sure that it is actually updating the name in this case. And then that's adding a cross-reference for the online store. And that it's, again, if that one already exists, which I add one here with this push here, you see. So this is part of the arrange. This part up here is the arrange. Here's the act. And here's the assert. So at this point, we should have at least 2 cross-references, at most 3 cross-references, in the Customer 360 data that we end up with. And just to show you that that's what's been going on, I've got, I ran this earlier, the staging bucket. You can see that we've got some documents that are in here from the, well, I'm missing some. This is just from the home delivery system. But if I go to Customer 360 and drill into these, you can see that thanks to the eventing function, I actually have 2 cross-references. One is the home delivery and one is the online store. And so what I hope to do here is we'll bring in the CSV here. Let's just try this out, see if this works. I don't see why it shouldn't. Well, you know, I'm having some trouble with my website, my simulator crashing on me. I think it's related to SQL Lite stuff going on. So I'm kind of confused by that. So why don't I stop this for now? And so it's shutting down. Just make sure that it's completely shut down. Okay, good. So let's run my simulator again. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with SQLite, but I seem to be doing something wrong that's causing my simulator app to crash. But I think I can, I don't think I need any SQLite to actually produce the CSV. One other thing I've been having trouble with is, and this is probably just a weird, because I'm doing something weird, is in my in my project here, I've created a special folder called CSV exports, and that's where I'm putting CSV files. That's where I'm picking them up to import them into Couchbase. When I deploy this to Docker, this CSV exports folder does not get created. And I don't know why. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that when I create a Docker image, but it's not getting created. So I have to go in here, I have to make CSV exports folder in my Docker image, in the running Docker image. So I'll go ahead and try this out. We'll produce a CSV file. Okay, you see it was successful. And then if I go back to my Docker image, CSV exports, there's a CSV file that I created. I can actually, oh my goodness. Yeah, so you can see there's some data in there coming from my Postgres system. And then I can pick it up with consume CSV, which these are tasks that run on a nightly basis, but I can also trigger them manually with these endpoints here. And so now I've got some more items in the staging area, but notice that I've got 18 here and 12 here because there is some consolidation happening, which is what we want to see. So if I go back to my query here, we can see that we've got a few people that have 3 different cross-references. So let's bring up Jaleel Meyer here in our Customer 360 bucket, and we can see that we've got a home delivery piece. So Jaleel Meyer is actually a customer we like a lot because he is in our home delivery system, he's in our online store, he's in our loyalty program. So we have pieces of Jaleel Meyer spread across 3 different systems, but because of our Customer 360 system, we've actually combined all of his data into one single document in our Customer 360 system. So if, for instance, Jaleel Meyer was calling us, he had an issue or something, we could bring up all of Jaleel Meyer's information with just one call to one system here, our Customer 360 system. We say, oh, hello, Mr. Meyer, is this your correct address? I see you have 44 loyalty points, and as we'll get to here in a minute, I see you have online orders, X, Y, and Z. How can I help you? That sort of thing. And at a glance. And then if we have all of our customers like this, we could then start to query all of our customers to see, well, it seems like we have a lot of customers in a particular state and very few customers in another state. Well, why is that? Maybe there's a certain problem with stores in a certain state. We have a distribution problem. Or the loyalty customers in a certain city tend to be more loyal and rack up more loyalty points. We can look these things up. There's some very simple things we could do, but we're not at that point yet. We're still ingesting data. Okay, so that's where we are right now. That's the Customer 360 system as it stands today. There's a couple things I want to start coding today, and one is the order information. So let me just close up some of these. Oh, this is what I want to keep open. All right. Whoops. Up to here. Eventing function is what I want. So we're pulling the online CRM, and one of the things we're going to do is we're going to update the customer doc from the online store and just save that customer. But the other thing we want to do, you can kind of see from the comments there, is that I also want to get that customer's order information. So I have, whoops, what did I just close something? So, yeah, okay. So I have, if we go back to our favorite customer here, Jaleel Meyer, if I go to here and I say, give me this customer's details, hopefully this won't crash SQLite, no customer was found. That's strange, because we know we found him here. He's customer number 7. So why isn't anything being returned by the system? No customer with the address was found. Well, that's concerning. Let's try another one. Kendra Goldner. Come on down. No Kendra Goldner. What's going on here? Tristan Becker. Is anybody in the system? All right, so we'll populate. Okay, so this may be where I'm having some trouble with SQLite, which seemed to be working fine before. But if you notice here, it's spinning way too long. And I expect an error message to pop up here any second now. I have no idea why this is. I have some suspicions. Yeah, here we go. So there's an error, and so it says database is locked. Very strange. So I'm going to close this up here. Clearly there's something wrong with our simulator when it comes to SQLite. So I have some suspicions. And one of them is this hacky thing that I did with ensure schemas, which goes through and, you know, if these tables aren't created, it's going to try to create them. And if they already are created, it's going to cause an error, which then I catch. I suspect this is something to do with it. This is super hacky. So one thing I could do is I can, instead of putting these in a try-catch, I could actually put these inside of some sort of if statement. And just only run them if I detect that these tables don't exist. So the question then is, how do I check to see if a table exists in SQLite? For that, I'm going to do some Googling. Because with SQLite, I can just bring up, I have a SQLite running on my PC, not inside Docker. So I wonder if there's, like in some databases, you can use like an information schema. And I wonder if, like some metadata about your database. I'm wondering if I can do that with SQLite. SQLite master, interesting. Click star from SQLite master. What's that going to do? Execute with result. Okay, interesting. All right, and all I really care about is just if one of these exists, right? So if let's give this a let's count this. Give this an alias where m.table equals m.type equals table, and m.name equals, what is it? Customer details is probably fine. Customer details. Is that going to run? Yes, it is. Okay. So I'm going to just put this guard clause in here and say, if SQLite tables already exist, put those in here. This is really, really hack. And what is this on product table? So that's I can probably move that in there too, because that's also SQLite. I only need to create that once. Okay, so I'll create this method. SQLite table already exists. And what I need is this SQL right here. I'll just put that as a comment. And so we can say result equals online store repository dot query. Wait, no, it's it. No, not repository. What I want is online store DB query int. Let's make it long, so I think SQLite likes the longs. And this query is just going to be, just tell me if this table actually exists. First or default. And so I will return if result is greater than 0. So it will only run this the very first time that it needs to. Okay. So let's compile that. All right. And then I will rebuild the Docker image. I'll take a second here. While we're waiting, just take another second to say thanks to everybody for hanging out with me today, doing some streaming. And if you have any questions, no matter what they are along the way, the philosophy that I generally have is the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So if you see anything that you're not sure about, you're confused about, you're curious about, ask away. I am happy to answer, and I'm not going to try to go too far down a rabbit hole, but I'm happy to answer the best I can. Feel free to ask, whether it's related to C#, JavaScript, Couchbase, SQL, whatever. I'll do my best to answer. And yeah, that's it, basically. Just ask away. Feel free to stop me at any time. Okay, so I got the Docker image built. That's successfully built. Okay. So that we can see Docker images. This is the one I just built 30 seconds ago. Okay, good. Let's run the simulator. See what happens. While I'm at it, I'll go ahead and I'll remove the stuff that's already in Postgres and SQL, and MySQL. I don't need that anymore. And I'll clear out my, where is it? Oh, don't look at that one. Clear out Customer 360 and staging. So we're just going to start fresh, basically. Should be 0 here and 0 here. Yep, okay. So we've got the simulator running. And refresh here. Should have Swagger. Excellent. Go ahead and populate. Okay, so it's not crashed. That's good. And it created this guy, Casper Cruikshank, which should create one document in state. Well, at least one document in staging. And as you can see, it's created one document here in Customer 360. So chances are, just by random chance, this guy did not make it into the online store database, and he did not. Okay, so we can try again. Create another person, and it is, where's the response? Internal server error. What? Now what happened? I don't see any internal server error. Populate. Try it out. Execute. Okay, so I probably messed something up with the code that I just wrote, but for some reason it's not crashing my app. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to take Docker out of the equation. Oh, there's an error. SQL logic error. No such table, customer details. Yeah, so I did something wrong for sure. But I'm going to take Docker out of the equation here to make it a little faster cycle time here. So this is going to be localhost. This is going to be localhost. And this is going to be, that's fine the way it is. This is going to be localhost. So by doing this, I'm going to break my eventing function because it's living inside of the Docker host. That's fine because that's not really the issue we're having right now. But I'm going to run this on my Windows machine. And I think I mentioned this before. I should create 2 config files, so I don't have to do this manually, but I haven't yet. I'm super lazy. Okay, try this out. Execute. All right, we got ourselves a nice little error screen here. Let's take a look. Customer table already exists. Well, yeah, I know it already exists. But I thought my code would be checking for that. Did I mess something up? Ensure schemas. If that would be it. If the tables do not already exist, then create them. There's no point in doing that otherwise. One little exclamation point can cause so much trouble. Still not going very fast. Maybe there's another issue. Looks like there is another issue. Wait, I did compile, right? Maybe I didn't compile. Well, it worked that time. What is going on? What in the Sam Scratch is going on? Let's try refresh here. How's it not working from... Okay. That's weird. Sure is taking a long time to run that. Well, there it goes again. There's the error. Now we got the worst thing possible, an intermittent error. No such host is known. Oh boy. Okay. No such host is known. Did I mess something up with my startup here? Localhost. No, that's right. This shall be localhost. This shall be localhost. So look at my connect. Localhost, 5432.3306. 5432.3306. Localhost. Well. Let's just compile again. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I've skipped a step. All right. Populate. It's worrying to me how long that's taking. Yeah, something's not right there. I think it's intermittent because I do have a random element when I'm populating data. Which systems to populate, which system not to populate is sort of picked randomly. So it seems to me that it's choking when we're talking about loyalty system. Why would that be? Why would that be? Because I can connect to it from Heidi SQL here, right? Customers, which this is outside Docker host. Oh, members. But my application doesn't want to connect to it. And why is that? Why? Oh, yep, I see it. This is user ID. The server should be localhost. Yep, that's going to be it. Good old connection string. So now we should work just fine. Execute again, and again, and again, and again. Okay. And so I could, for instance, try this one in the online order, see if it made it in there. And it did. There we go. So I can take the ID, and this is the part I want to bring into the application next, is pull up all their orders. And this person only has one order with 2 items in it, but this is data I also want to put into our Customer 360 system. So not only can we see the customer's profile information and their loyalty points, but we can see more complex stuff like their actual stuff they've ordered online. This is not going to live in the same document as the Customer 360. So this is going to be a separate document in our Customer 360 system, which is fine. There's actually some data modeling reasons for this. The list of orders could get pretty long, and we don't want to inflate that document more than we need to. Additionally, it's somewhat unbounded. You know, a customer could have 1 order, or they could have 1,000 orders, and I don't want to have to try to cram 1,000 orders into one document. We're just going to run into some Couchbase limits there before anything else. You know, a Couchbase document can be pretty big. It can be, I think, 20 meg at most. But it's just not a good design to try to cram everything into that 20 meg document. We can stick it into other documents. So that way an order can be as big as we need it to be, and we can have as many orders as we want to, and so we can accommodate that way. Unfortunately, since Couchbase has full SQL join capabilities, we can still join that data together. It's just at a higher aggregate level, which, again, I covered a while back in a previous stream, and I also covered this at the recent Nomad.js meetup. If anyone's ever heard of Nomad.js, this is an online virtual meetup. Give them a quick plug here. They've got some workshops coming up. So here's Chris DeMars, and here is Joel Lord. And this used to be called Nomad PHP, I think, but they rebranded it to Nomad.js recently, and I was fortunate enough to be a presenter on one of their first online meetup / presentation. So definitely check it out, nomadjs.com. Lots of great people there. I don't know if I've ever met Chris DeMars, but I see him on Twitter a lot. And of course, I have met Joel Lord. He works for Auth0 as a DA there. So some great stuff from those guys, and I think they even post their sessions. I haven't seen mine yet posted, but I think they plan to post their sessions to YouTube or something for you to watch previous sessions. Okay. Now that I think we got everything working, let's go back to Dockerland. So I'm gonna, again, I've just been too lazy to actually create any sort of config file set up here, so I'm just manually going back and forth like a noob. Whatever works, though. Whatever works. Okay, and then we will we'll build a Docker file. So just another update while we're waiting here. The streaming session today I've got scheduled to go until about 3:30, the latest. So I might, we might go that whole time or not. We got about an hour left, but just to let you know, that's what I've got scheduled here. Step 13 of 18. L. Bishop, I love programming, and you're a IoT developer. It looks like you have an NA in there, so I'm going to guess you're not a native English speaker, but you are certainly welcome. I mean, we try to keep this as mostly in English here. But actually, a little bit of trivia. I am trying to learn. I don't know if you're speaking Spanish, or that's just a coincidence that you put an NA in there. But I'm actually trying to learn Spanish myself. One of my New Year's resolutions was to try to get better at Spanish. I took some Spanish in high school, and so I have some of the basics. But trying to get myself up to speed on Spanish, and totally coincidence. But I am planning to go to Barcelona here this month for KubeCon, which is a Kubernetes conference. KubeCon EMEA, they call it, because it's in the Europe region. EMEA, which EMEA stands for what? Europe, Mediterranean, something, something. I don't know. What does EMEA stand for? Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So anyway, they're having the KubeCon EMEA conference in Barcelona, Spain. So I'll be going there and putting my Spanish skills to the test. I don't expect to be fluent in any normal conversation, but it'll be at least easier for me to read signage and stuff. So that'll be good. Okay. Docker is ready to go. Well, it looks like it's still running. Okay. And we'll fire up our simulator. New and improved simulator. Hopefully with less crashes this time. Anyway, L Bishop, sorry I get sidetracked there. But based on your name and the Enye in your chat, I'm going to guess you are a Spanish speaker of some sort. So you are welcome to hang out, but this is English first channel, I guess. So just keep that in mind. But I'm glad you're doing some IoT stuff. That's pretty cool. I don't do much in the way of mobile or IoT development. I mostly work on web development and server side stuff, with an occasional dip into front end JavaScript and things like that. All right, where are we? Localhost 8080 Swagger. All right, let's see if this populator worked this time without blowing up on me. Oh man, looks like it's working. Wait, did I see an error? So far no errors. So far so good. So as I'm doing this, I would expect data to show up in the staging bucket and then ultimately into the customer 360 bucket, which is what we're seeing, which is terrific. Mostly it's home delivery and online store because I have not triggered the CSV process yet, which again, there's no folder for it. CSV exports. So we'll produce the CSV file, success, and I'll just show it there. There it is, and then we'll go ahead and consume that CSV file. This would normally happen once every 24 hours, but I'm just walking through it manually for testing reasons. So now in our staging bucket, we've got some loyalty data as well as the data from the home delivery system. And over in the customer 360 bucket, we've got all kinds of different permutations of that. But if I go back to my query here, we can see who has the most cross-references is Tavares Rotke. So if I plug him into this, should be a result. And there it is. Okay. So I think we figured it out. It was my really hacky migration code for SQLite. It was most likely the problem there. So thankfully that is resolved. So we can move on. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to just add another function here to update. What should we call this? So we're going to bring in those orders I was talking about. So if we go back to this, right here. This is what I want. We're going to try. What was the customer ID? It was number 2. So we're bringing the orders from a given customer. In this case, we've got 2 orders. So I want to import those 2 orders, and I don't expect these orders to change after I import them, so I don't have to update existing orders. I just want to bring in new orders. So maybe we can call that import new orders. So we're going to create a function for that. Function import new orders. This is JavaScript here, and this is going to live in the Couchbase eventing engine, but I'm going to be testing it here in Node and JavaScript. So let's think this through a little bit. Give it an email address. Okay. So, should it live in here? Should I test it on its own? So this is, I'm actually already testing that. Import new orders. So if I'm going to leave that as part of the same function, then I'm going to make this part of the same describe suite here, which is fine. So, it should import new orders. Function, semicolon. All right, and the trick here is it's going to be My curl function is going to have to get, my curl fake is going to have to be a little more complicated, I think, because of the way I'm doing this. But that's fine. We can live with that. So it should import new orders, which basically means we're going to, our act is going to be the same as before. Eventing.pull online CRM doc k cust curl log. I know this is a lot of parameters. This is kind of hacky, but the way I'm deploying these, I feel like this is the what's the expression I'm looking for here? The best I could do, I guess. There's a lot worse ways I could go about hacking this together. So that's the best I can come up with for now. Okay, so I want to assert that. So I expect we're going to have some orders. I'm going to arrange some orders. And probably put the orders up here. Order docs. And the order docs are going to look kind of like this right here, this response body. We're just going to use that as the basis for our fake orders. I don't need this many items in there, so I'm going to trim this out just to clean things up. And these can be shortened up too. It's not important what the details are. Just want a nice, compact, fake set of data. Oops. Okay, and same thing here. So 2 orders, that seems like a reasonable amount for testing. Put that all in here. Alright, so I've got these order docs. And now my function is Radari says interesting. Thanks for joining us, Radari. What do you find interesting about my really terrible JavaScript code? Let's see. So in my eventing function, so I want to differentiate on the URLs. So get customers. So this should only no ES6 adoption. So maybe I'm missing something. I don't know JavaScript nearly as well as other languages. So if there's something I could be doing better, let me know. happy to because I'm not sure what you mean by the ES6. I think ES6 is the latest version of ECMAScript or JavaScript, right? So there's some constructs and things that have been improved in language, but so I'm sure I'm missing something. And my JavaScript knowledge goes way back, so there's probably some old habits that I have with JavaScript. But what I want to do basically is I only want to return curl doc if the URL contains this, and I want to return order docs. What other languages do you work with? So Radari, mainly I work with C#, .NET, and I do a lot of SQL, SQL/Nickel. Those are my languages of choice, and I'm just using Node and JavaScript here because with Couchbase I am creating some eventing code that lives on the Couchbase databases, and I'm required to write that in JavaScript. So I have to write that in JavaScript there, and I'm using Node here because I can create some unit tests to more easily test this stuff without actually deploying it to a server. You love Node, that's cool, and you're learning Golang, also cool. Maybe we'll take a short second here to, since you came in late, check out Awesome Developers Streaming. This is a GitHub repository, and it's a list of developers who live code all kinds of different topics. And if you're interested in Node, for instance, you can see, just do a Control F and see everyone that's streaming about Node on a regular basis, or Golang. Oops, if I can spell it right. You can see other people who are streaming on Golang. So if you're interested in those topics, I don't know Golang at all, and I probably will not be streaming on it anytime soon. That's just a cool resource for you to check out some other people who are doing that. Can I post a link? Yeah, I'll post it right here in the chat for you. There you go. Okay, anyway, so back to what I was doing. I want to return order docs if the URL contains, and back over to Swagger here, get orders by customer ID. Yeah, so this is kind of hacky, but I want to say if URL in, is it in str? Is that the method? To see if a string contains another string? I'll have to look it up. Okay. So JavaScript string contains is index of, not str, index of. Index of. And if it's -1, that means it's not in the string. Index of is a little more complicated than just is it in the string or not, but that's the closest thing we have. Okay, so I've modified this curl method, so I'm kind of nervous that I broke something else. So I'm going to go ahead and say npm test. Just make sure my tests are still passing. And I've got some failing tests. So I broke something. Given an email address for the online CRM. And this might be because I have some half-written code in here. Let's see. Import new order. No, nothing going on there right now. So what did I break? What did I break? Should update user by pulling the REST API. What did I break? Cannot read property name of undefined. Okay. Yes, so I think I probably did break something here with the curl. So I'm guessing if I comment this out, the tests will pass. Reference RK is not defined. Yeah, that's here. Haven't got to that part yet. Okay, so I did something wrong with the curl. If you're index of, get orders by customer ID, and return curl doc. Oh, I'm pasting the wrong thing. What am I doing? What am I doing? Over here, I want get customer detail by email. That's what I want. Now the test should pass. Alrighty. Okay. So it should import new orders. So the orders being arranged, I did that up here. Order docs. Okay. Okay, so I do need the key, which is doc.email. And I've got my existing cust bucket, which is just nothing. I think that should be fine. Curl, which yeah, so I think that's good. So I want to assert that equal, that, so I've got each of these orders has an ID. Right, so let's just say order docs, we expect, let's see, expected order ID, expected order key equals order docs, let's see, the first one, dot, what, order ID? Yep. So we can say, we can expect that document to exist. So it is not strictly going to be the case that that is undefined. And I expect this to fail. And it is. And that's exactly why I would expect it to fail, because it's saying, I can't find this. This is not defined yet. Okay? Good. We got a failing test. That's the first step to getting a working test, is having a failing test. Okay. Quick distraction on Twitter and email. What's going on over there? I got a notification. How exciting. Let's see. Oh, Greg Shackles wants to do a Couchbase show on Gone Mobilecast. Interesting. So I'm going to tag Rob Hedgeworth, probably real Rob, on Twitter. See if he's interested. All right. Kristen from Twitch TV has 19,000 followers, and she retweeted me. Oh, that's very nice, Kristen. Thank you for that. I don't know who you are, but you look like you have a lot of followers. So, you probably work for Twitch, I'm guessing. Lil Bumblebear. Maybe not, I don't know. But you seem to be very, very popular, and you're following one person. Very cool. Okay, well, thank you for that, Kristen, if you're watching. I appreciate that retweet. Alrighty. Okay, enough of the distraction. Back to work. So I've got import new orders, and I'm going to need the email. I'm going to need the buckets, right? Yes, I think so. I'm going to need curl, and I may want to bring in log. I'll bring in all those parameters here. Okay. And then, oh, I don't, actually, let me think about this. I don't necessarily need the email. That just caused me an extra step. What I do need is, where is it? Yeah, the ID. So I'm saying customer doc.id. Cust ID. Yes. That's what I need to pass to the API. Okay. And back over here, the API URL is like this. Just drop that in as a comment. Okay. Excellent. So orders URL equals, I'm going to just construct this. I'm not going to hard code 2 in there. I'm going to append the cust ID to that. In fact, do I need this email in here? I don't think I do. I don't need anything else, just the customer ID and the curl, and I'll bring in log. I don't necessarily need it just yet. So then orders equals curl orders URL, and where's my curl? This part right here, this method get. Okay. It's going to go out and get all the orders. Okay, and then we're going to say for, we're going to loop through all these orders. I less than orders dot length I plus plus, and all I really need to do, I think, is just say, let me look at this. Yeah. This connects to a customer ID. Yes. So all I need to do is just say, I should pass in the bucket. Cust. Is the bucket. Yeah. Probably a bad name. I should call it cust bucket or something. Cust. And we can say that order IDs are unique globally. So we're designing key here. It's probably okay to say, oh, let's just say order equals orders I. It's probably okay to say, and let me just see how this order looks again. Let me just peek at it. Order ID. Order.order ID equals orders I. That's going to save that order into this document right here. And I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. If we just keep it like that, I think that's going to be all I need. It should be orders URL. I think that's it. Loop through all the orders and import them. So let's try to run the test. Passing. Da, 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 da. Okay. So the next step is to actually deploy this over to Couchbase and just make sure it works for real. Undeploy the function out there. And all I'm going to do is copy everything from this file except for this module.exports. That makes no sense in a Couchbase function. It's only there so I can write my unit test against it. Everything else should make total sense living inside of a Couchbase function. So I'll just copy and paste that in there and save. Seems to be happy. And I'm going to deploy that soon, but first let's just empty out the customer 360 bucket because I want to start over again. Although, well, it's too late now, but it probably wouldn't make any difference. It would probably still import the orders. But I'm going to re-trigger the whole thing by deploying this. And we're going to say everything. We're going to just rerun it on everything in staging. That's going to take a second to deploy. And once that happens, what I should see is like 40 some items in here, plus all the orders, which I don't know how many that is. So we could see upwards of 70 plus items in here. Oh, it's already running. Well, okay, good. That was a quick deployment. So we're seeing a lot of items come in there. Up to 23. Some of those are hopefully orders. If my test was written correctly, then that's what we should see in there. So far, so good. The number of items in Customer 360 is surpassing the number of items in staging, which is what I would expect. Well, I'm not sure why staging is actually dropping in number. That I wouldn't expect. Okay, well, it looks like we're done there. So I want to just see if any orders showed up. Not seeing any orders. It is curious. Where'd all my loyalty data go? Did it expire out? Is that what happened? Yeah, loyalty's in there. So do I still have a set of like super customers? I do. Like Tavares here. buckets, documents, paste them in. So, yeah. He's got some stuff. And if I just take this and paste it over here, execute that. Should get the ID back, which is 2. And then I should be turning around and doing 2 here, which should return these orders. So, for some reason, it's not working. All right. I'm going to have to, since it's running my test, and I think I wrote the test correctly, although probably not. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a debugger to the actual event on Couchbase. So we're not going to try to debug it in Node. We're going to try to debug it in Couchbase. So I'm going to do that right after a short break. Let me just put up a little message here for anyone that drops in. I will be right back. Let me get a bigger font. I'll be right back, but nature calls. So I shall see you in just a few minutes. I'm back. All right. Anybody still hanging around? Thank you. Thank you for still hanging around. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to debug, and there's a debug option here in Couchbase, and I've tried this before, and I had some problems because it's running inside Docker, which makes it a little more complicated, but I figured it out here. So what I need to do here is I'm waiting for some mutation to happen so I can kick off the debugger. So I'm actually have Couchbase in a browser open in another window. I'm actually going to just manually make a change to one of these documents. Ideally, it would be one that has my man Tavares in it. Right? Is that who it was? Yeah, Tavares. So let me see if I can find out which one is Tavares. Select star from staging, and I want where payload.after.email equals, oops, no, this guy, Tavares. Okay, and he is, let's see, all I care about is the key, meta ID. Oh, this is nonsense. Oh, that is not a very friendly key. All right, well, anyway, doesn't matter. I'll just modify one of these documents. Well, you know, I can maybe, let me figure this out. Okay, over here, I could just go to Documents and just paste a where clause in here. That should work. Oh, don't need a where. Okay, there he is. All right, so I'm just going to make a manual change to this document, which should kick off the debugger here. So I'll make a relatively meaningless change to it. And the URL should appear here. There it is. So I'll copy that. And now the problem is, notice when I paste this, the URL that it's trying to access via the Google Chrome debugger is actually a Docker URL. It's inside the Docker host, which is not going to, it's not going to be able to find that URL. So I need to replace that manually with localhost. Okay, so now we can actually use the debugger. So I'm interested mainly I got some breakpoints here set from last time I did this. I'm mainly interested in why, oh hey, that's interesting. Anyway, I'm interested in why my orders aren't coming through. Import new orders. Here we go. And that's being called from here. So we'll set a breakpoint there. All right. Okay, so you can see that it hit the breakpoint here. I hit the resume, hit the breakpoints. Okay, and we can keep going. Yep, fine. So it's got this customer doc. Okay, it's getting the online, it's getting the customer details. So we're walking through this stuff. That's all fine. I don't really need to, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. All right, so the orders URL. So I've got this cust, I've got cust ID, ooh, undefined. So something's not right here. Undefined. Update customer doc from online stores, undefined. Well, that's the problem. So what am I doing wrong? This is returning an ID. All right. All right, let's go back over to the code here. Online store. Details. Yep, customer doc. Wait a second. Online store. Update customer doc. Online store. Yeah, okay, whatever with that. Don't care about that one. So is this returning customer doc like I expect it to? It might not be. Return customer doc. Oh. It's returning the customer 360 doc, which doesn't have the ID in it. Okay. So what I actually want is I mean, that information lives in a cross-reference now. But I don't want to have to navigate that. That's going to be complicated to navigate to that one. So another thing I could do, this is maybe a little bit hacky, but maybe our my unit tests will make sure this isn't too bad. I'm going to just take this import new orders code and put it inside the update customer doc from online store code. So as a second step in here, we're going to actually pull in the orders too. Now the weird thing is that technically speaking, this isn't creating a customer doc. I'll be creating the orders before I create the customer doc, but I think that's probably fine. And so cust ID is going to be this one, .id. Okay, so that's fine, that's fine. That's fine, that's all fine. Okay, I think that's fine. Let's just try the, make sure this test still pass. They should. They don't. Cust is not defined. The user, okay. Cust is not defined. Yes, because I don't have cust in here, do I? I don't. All right. Well, let's bring cust in here then. Right before curl. And then I can move this part into that function. There's no reason really to return it anyway. Nothing I can think of. So may as well just do it in here. Now it's going to work. All right, passing. Excellent. All right, so let's go back to Couchbase and we'll try it again. So that the debugging thing you saw is pretty cool. We're actually, it's leveraging Chrome's built-in debugging mechanism to attach to this, and you can set breakpoints and things like that. Yeah. So that's something you'll definitely need. For writing functions and eventing. Okay, undeployed. Let's edit the JavaScript, and we'll go back over here. Once again, I only need everything under module.exports. I don't know what will happen if I put module exports in. It might give me an error message, but I just need to paste that in, save it. And I'm going to, once again, just clear out Customer 360 bucket, clear it out. I'll leave the staging ones in there. So it should be 0 up here. And it is, okay. I'll deploy this one. And we'll just run on everything in the staging bucket again. And so once that runs, we should start seeing the items counter go up here. And it should go up much higher than last time. And I'm surprised. I want my loyalty information. Bring it on in again. Okay. It might have just expired out. I think I set the import from the CSV to expire after 30 minutes or something, so it might have just expired out. So, oh, yeah. It's not going to re-import the same file because I just did that. So I'll just manually delete that, and now it should be much more than 28 in there. Yeah, 52. Okay, there we go. And we got items already there being populated in Customer 360, so that's good. Should be more than 52, though, I think, including all the orders that are coming in. Keep going. Come on. Oh, it's not looking good. It's still not bringing those orders in. So once again, I'm going to debug. And off screen, I'm going to again edit this, Tavares over here. And wait for that link to show up. Okay. Paste it in here and we'll step through it. Oh, wrong URL again. Should be localhost. Now, if this Chrome happened to be running inside Docker host somehow, then I wouldn't need to do that. Okay, so where is the problem here? Import new orders. Well, I don't need to. This is a dead code I need to get rid of, but where is that? Update doc from online store. Here we go. Okay, so let's see if we can skip ahead. Okay. Okay, that's 2. That's correct. And, I see the problem. Yep. I see the problem. It's that URL. So I have it as, let's first get rid of this dead code. I have it as localhost 8080. That's not going to work because, again, we're inside the Docker host. So it needs to be this. right here. Yep, down here. And there's not, I do not need to specify a port because inside Docker host it's port 80, which is your default HTTP port, HTTP port, so that should work. Okay. I can probably remove that comment as well. Alrighty. Let's do it again. Oh, let's make sure the test run. Shouldn't have any effect on it because I just changed the domain. Okay. Looks good. And, you know, if you were a cleverer person than I, or you're doing this a lot, you might set up some sort of automated build process to do this, to actually deploy the function, sorry, without having to do all these manual steps. I think there's a REST API available to edit these functions. Oh, that's not what I want to paste in there. What is the problem here? Visual Studio Code. Copy. Paste. There we go. Okay, once again, I'm going to clear out the Customer 360 bucket just to start from scratch. Not that it really should matter. And deploy. And on everything. Okay. Now we should see some good stuff. Yeah, okay, whatever. I was working on that CSV document, wasn't I? Okay, we got documents coming in. Are any of them orders? Not seeing any so far. Man, what am I doing wrong? Yeah, there's Tavares. I know he's got orders. Why aren't any showing up? Why? All right. I feel like we're really close here. Let this finish out, I guess. That doesn't matter. We can undeploy. Oh, no. I don't want to undeploy just yet. No. Yeah. The CSV files are expiring, aren't they? Yep. Okay, I'm going to bring those loyalty files back in, because why not? And delete from Customer 360. Oh, they're still coming. Fine. So what I want to do is, over here, is edit, and we're going to debug this again. Just manually make a change to Tavares. Good old Tavares. And we'll step through again, see what the problem is this time. Localhost. Is that same breakpoint set? I don't know what that one is. Okay, and right here. That's where it should be pulling in orders. Huh, what happened? What happened? Did I skip a breakpoint? What happened? Try it again. Manual change to Tavares. Waiting for debugger. Copy. Localhost. Okay. Now, online store is where I want to be. Okay, looks good. Can we skip ahead to like here? Uh-oh. Did I break something else? still working? Ah. My API crashed. Again, this is a SQLite issue. What am I doing wrong with this? Null connection or database handle. What am I doing wrong over here? Ah, boy. I'm being taken down by SQLite. I feel like it's just not, I'm not disposing SQLite connection or something correctly. And that is, so I think my event is probably fine. We delete from customer 360, fine. Eventing. So if I go and make a manual change to old to Varus, then it should, one item shows up here. Okay, just to Varus, but I should expect orders to show up too, and they're not showing up. Again, is it crashing? Yep. No such table order. Why isn't there an order table? Why? It should have created one. Order right there, right there. Didn't crash the whole system. Oh my goodness. Well, I got to figure out the SQLite thing, really. That's, you know, originally the design of this, the requirements of this tutorial did not include SQLite, and I decided to bring that in there just to mix it up a little bit, but it's giving me some real headaches compared to Postgres and MySQL, and Couchbase for that matter. So, I don't know. Figure this out. But I think I'm going to call it a day. We're about 8 minutes until my scheduled time up. So let's wrap things up here. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. I appreciate it. And sorry we didn't get the order thing working all the way to the end, but I should have it working because I need to get this tutorial written. I'm going to spend most of the day tomorrow and maybe today actually doing the writing and screenshots and stuff like that. So I'm going to get this working end to end, and hopefully it'll be ready by the time I do my next stream. In the meantime, thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate you hanging out, and I appreciate the new follows from, let's see, who followed me? Copperapaka, thank you, and Ben the Gamer, thank you, and thank you Ridari for stopping by, and L Bishop also for stopping by. Appreciate it, and I want you all to have a really good day. Thank you.